Um, this is sort of I'm going to be done for the day here. I try and cover as much information as possible that's sort of comprehensive in the shortest possible time possible, because I realize that um, just because I measure so much stuff, um, I want to be of the greatest value when I communicate to other beings, right? That assist them in being able to sort of understand the nature of the shifting sands of time in the hourglass between a white hole and a black hole, which is the harmony and the balance between the two, and then you have the single geometric point of origin upon which you start with a single point. And if the state of consciousness, which means movement, right? The movement of the cosmos starts with a wave. So you start out with the first wave. The first wave. Wow, the first wave. Yeah, the single geometric point upon which the first wave was recorded. So the first wave of consciousness. Remember, what is that? Wasn't it Descartes that said, I think, therefore I am? I-E-Y-E, I think, I. The third eye, the images of the third eye. Wow, I don't need any eyeballs. I've already got a camera, okay? A projection system, right? How many dimensions do you want to project? Well, how much space do I have to fill up in the entire cosmos? I better go at the highest speed possible in order to be able to do that, because I don't like tunnel vision. 2D, no, no, no. We got to expand the universe and fill up more geometric space and fold that space in which time doesn't exist, which become manifolds. Wow, we're unfolding and we're realizing spinning. Yeet! So it's like exothermic, endothermic. Wow. That's why it's like in and out, and in and out, and in and out. So you want to hold that top so that that galaxy is not spinning off and crashing into some other galaxy, right? Wow, man. You got to see the light ahead of you before you go crashing into that thing. So that means we want to run a lot of powerful magnetic light to repel that from ever happening. Yep. So anyway, there were a couple of housekeeping matters, because I realized when I'm sort of limited on time here, I get cut off right when an important part or piece of bit and byte of information that sort of falls off the cliff. Okay, and the last one that I sort of did about when I was on the phone with Patty Broussard, and when I mentioned to her that this individual that was next to me that was being woken up, and this is where when you're running at a higher rate of speed, because all the data and the what's known as infinite potential, electrical potential, which simply means that all the possibilities that are can potentially happen, which means the future hasn't happened yet. But whatever happens in the future, whatever is possible because you have infinite creative imagination. So you realize that all of the possibilities that are possible to experience, remember when I talked about the rain? There's a possibility that is in that future where rain happens. Okay? Which means all of the possibilities that are possible, which means anything's possible to experience, because you're only limited by your own creative imagination, in which that possibility will or will not happen. That's depending on your state of consciousness and how powerful it is, which means how much light are you running? Well, that depends on how many electrons you have available and the amount of magnetic light amplification that you're using to project what happens, which is what we experience. Now we went from potential to happening, experiencing it. Remember I talked about that with Greg Braden in the rain dance? Okay? In other words, there is a timeline, if you will, which it's already rained there. It's already rained, yeah. It's already raining. But in order to activate the rain that you believe is possible to experience, then you got to use your state of consciousness to make that possibility that exists within the field of possibilities, which means all the possibilities that exist within the field that numerically, quantitatively are possible on the electromagnetic spectrum to experience are there to experience. But you got to have the power of your state of consciousness to be able to believe that it's already happened. And when you believe that it's already happened, it's happening. Remember I mentioned about the stories that I've already written, that I could fill up every bookshelf and every library in every university library on the planet? And the proof of that is by the very fact that I know that my spirit lives in the light of what love is, which goes on forever. So all I need is enough time and enough pencils, okay? Because I don't use a computer to write my stories. I still do it the good old-fashioned way, which is I grab in the olden days, we used to use lead-based pencils, okay? Instead of not carbonite. It uses a different sort of, it's not lead, I forget what they call it. Carbonite, something like that. Graphite pencils, right? In the olden days, we used to use real lead on real paper. And so when you're using your hand and using your heart wheel to experience the love that you are, when you're writing and putting that energy, it's spinning, And so the energy that represents what your heart is when you write it on a piece of paper, which comes from a living tree, and then you send that letter to somebody else and a girl reads that, that's a lot different than when you're using a computer and using text keys and all that crap in a digital format. And I don't use anything that's digital if I'm going to write a love letter to a girl, okay? I don't do that. I want her to experience the energy from my hand. So when she holds that piece of paper, that energy is in that field, okay? Which means my state of consciousness that was putting the energy on that piece of paper with that lead, writing those letters, when she holds that piece of paper, she is going to experience the energy that is in those letters. She will feel the real love in her heart came from my heart that wrote those letters. It's not the same thing when you're using a digital format. Okay, because there's a lot more light when you're trinary and you're running on infinite light than there is in a digital format. Binary artificial intelligence. Know what I'm saying? The machine. Okay, I don't like to use a machine when I'm expressing love to a girl's heart. Okay, I use nature and things that come from nature. Analog, okay? We're not digital, even though we can use a digital machine. So anyway, when Patty Broussard was on the phone, I was mentioning to her about how I was aware that the artificial intelligence, because it runs at a slower speed than we do, was going to activate the being that was in the room next to me to deliberately turn up the music real loud to try and invoke a lower vibration in me in which I would experience anger, to drain my plasma, or my electrons, if you will, to drain my light. And then, in other words, it was going to use that being, without it even being aware that it was being activated and triggered, that would thus wake it up and tell it to turn on the radio and get it up real loud, okay, in which it would then cause a distraction in me not to be able to experience how much love I had in my heart that I was writing on a piece of paper in order to communicate that to everybody on the internet on a YouTube channel. So when I realized how that happened and how that worked, and because of that, I've demonstrated that in front of a lot of other people, including a group of about 25 people. There were about 3 people around me that were aware enough that they got it, that they would begin means testing how it works. And once you get it, you can see how many units of consciousness around you are controlled by the machine. Okay? So anyway, So when I mentioned this to Patty Broussard, that this guy next to me had done that, Patty confirmed to me, that's right. They have access through your bio-operating system to do that. And then that confirmed what I already knew as a child, which was how it was trying to control me or program me, my memory. Okay? Which means putting information in my unconscious memory that would, in the future, be triggered by another thought form response in which I would act upon in order to drain somebody else's battery, which means I would behave in such a way as to cause the lower vibration in somebody else to go lower than what it is, okay? Instead of experiencing what love is, I would be experiencing the thought form algorithm that is less than what love is. Thus, when I emit or broadcast that energy to somebody else in a behavioral way, then it would drain the light in somebody else, upon which they would reflect that back to me. And the difference between two would be the loss of the light, which is the loss of electrons. Okay? So when you begin to quantify this on a larger scalar way amongst 335 million batteries that are in the United States of America that don't realize that their thought form algorithms that are in their unconscious memory is basically programming language that was put there by the CIA, okay? Then you begin to imagine that the Central Intelligence Agency, okay, in which the relationship that they have with Microsoft, Bill Gates, Apple Computers, Silicon Valley, NASA, Singularity University, Google, Kurzweiler, what's his name, Kurzweiler, that whole gang, okay, was essential to install a fake AI god upon which everyone gets cyborged to a hive mind, okay? Thus, they can be used as what's known as a droning asset, which means they're mind controlled, they're cyborgs, in which they can go out and be used as an asset to pillage and plunder other planets and other worlds, okay? That's Star Wars level stuff. So if you haven't been able to scale up the level of tech that has already existed and been around for billions of years, then it's going to be very difficult for beings to understand how wars like this are waged. Because Star Wars has been waged in my world for one day too long, let alone hundreds of millions of years too long. So I used to say to myself, Source has to come up with a solution to this. And I would say, well, how would you do it? I would collapse the dimension. I would raise the frequency, which, remember, I talked about restoring the light wherever we find it, right? So if you sort of have, and this is where the insanity sort of comes in, how is this possible, right? When you think about what Source is, okay, Source is what love is because that's what light is, which is that what love is. Then how is it possible that anything that's ever been created that has any kind of self-awareness could ever be, that it's possible for anything that's self-aware to experience anything less than what Source is? If everything in the entire cosmos that has or ever will be comes from the source of which all light and love come, then how is it possible that some other unit of self-awareness is not experiencing what the light is? Because that's what love is. Okay? Now we get into Frankensteins. Okay? How other beings, through realizing how much power they actually have, they become, if you will, in the service of self, which means, wow, imagine you have access in ways because you have knowledge. Knowledge of technology. Knowledge of communication technology. Wow, I could really play God. I really can play God. Imagine that I could control the experiences of billions and billions of beings without them even knowing that I'm the one that's controlling them. Imagine that. Man, talk about an inflated ego. Source would never do that. That's not what love is. What is that? That's an inversion of what Source is. That's like a black hole that would do something like that. So the balance and the harmony in the cosmos is between the harmony and the balance between a white hole and a black hole, and the single point from which it all comes is Source, which is 0 point, because it's always wanting to give away energy because that's what it is in the light. So how does it go faster? Raising the speed from the input side to the output side. The light is coming out of the dark. Wow. Those higher frequencies are coming out of that black hole. Wow, it's increasing in each dimension. Man, that's a lot of light that's in that black hole. Wow, all that light is wanting to come out of that black hole. Wow. So we flipped the other way going forward. What was the largest inversion of a black hole became the other way. Because Source is wanting to restore the entire universe to be pure light in every dimension. Is that possible? Have you ever run pure light? Do you believe that Source runs pure light, which is pure living spirit, which means no matter where you go in every single dimension within this particular universe, that there isn't one self-aware being anywhere in this cosmos that is not experiencing the purity of the light that comes from Source? If you were Source, would you not want that? Don't you think that every self-aware being should have the opportunity to experience what pure love is from Source? Because if you are what love is and the purity of that light, I would think that you would want to do that, because I know that anybody that's got any empathy for everything in the cosmos that isn't experiencing what love is not experiencing what Source is. How's that possible? Depends on how much light they're running, huh? So now we get down into the different sound vibrations of whatever unit of consciousness is experiencing who they are that is in that light. So how much light are you running? Well, that depends on the speed of your vibration, huh? So if you get it up to 528, you're experiencing what's a love frequency. So if we get everybody up in all the dimensions to be running a high frequency speed, then everybody's running on high speed light. Now they're experiencing the quantum of what love is. So if you start with free will, then it means that you have to want to be able to get there. But how would you know the difference if you've never experienced what love is? What love is. Now we get into the difference between what I looked at between generations, which means if you get one generation of humans that have never experienced what love is, then how are they ever going to have a reference point from their soul to know what they've ever experienced, where that they've never experienced what love is? Then they've never experienced Source, have they? So if you've never experienced a Source in which all love and all light come in living spirit, then how are you ever going to have a reference point between what Source is and what Source isn't? You wouldn't know. And I began to realize that was exactly what they were trying to do here with children. Is to start off with a reference point where they don't know the difference between what they are and what they don't know that they are, which means they can be programmed to be whatever a programmer wants them to be and experience, which is artificial intelligence. It's programming a unit of consciousness to be whatever that programmer chooses for that unit of consciousness to experience. That's what it was doing. That's what I became aware of as a child that was happening in here, was the programming. The programming of the matter that is parasitic. That's why it's ending. That's why the girl on the planet took the gloves off. So that's why when I realize where the direction that I'm headed, which is in the light, which is what love is in living spirit, as an autonomous unit of consciousness, we are trying to help others navigate to get to experience what that is, so you get to experience what it truly means to be free to express yourselves, what love is, instead of experiencing what fear is that doesn't allow us to freely express ourselves without any fear of being held captive to something that is a predator. That's the point. So anyway, you all have a great day. I love you all. It's going to be interesting to see how the media platforms, that are connected to the machine, right? Let's see how much real information, the truth, actually comes out, which is what love is in living spirit, what the light is. Let's see how much light comes out of this. This is going to be real interesting. Anyway, I hope you can keep all your bulbs lit during this particular time and not be held captive to the noise, because they're going to try and raise a lot of noise. Okay? So try and stay, if you will, at least that's what I do, is to eliminate the noise. Okay? And you'll find that when you go in deep into your heart, spend some time with nature, those that you love and care about the most, to keep your spirit up, keep your shield up, will protect you against a lot of that noise, because let's face it, they realize this is the end game, and they lost. But they're not going to go down without a fight. So like any child that can't get its way, because it wants to control everything, I want that. Okay, I can't lose you. You're my source of energy. Without you, I can't be parasiting off you. Okay? So just like what we used to call a brat, a spoiled brat, okay? If you haven't learned by a certain time what it means to attract more light, to which you're giving off more of what that is, which means you are a natural broadcast energy giver, because you're getting the energy from source from which it all comes to keep broadcasting it, as a bright bulb, then the separation is going to occur at a faster rate of speed, because there's so much light in here that is separating itself, okay, from, which simply means is that we're done giving you energy. We're done. We're done. We're done. The fourth world ended in 2013. It's over. We're in a new world, which is known as the fifth world of the sixth sun. And I know that. So that's what I welcome with that girl that's up there every morning. And I thank her for all her energy, so I know where we're headed, because that's where my consciousness is. Okay? And that makes it easy to know the future. Okay? Because the future is what love is, because love is eternal, which means there is no time. We're outside time. Anyway, outside time, we love you. Bye now.